Hey, everybody. This is episode 20 of the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Disciplines series. We are nearing the end of this document. We are, let's see, I should have checked the page number that we're on today. It is page number 87 out of a little over 100. So we've got, I don't know, 4 or 5 more episodes left before we conclude. We're using the version that's updated from February of 2024. And you can always find that by going to globalmethodist.org, where you can download a number of documents, including this document. This document, of course, is going to be the backbone of the new denomination, the Global Methodist Church, which will be convening this coming September, and they're going to be augmenting all kinds of parts of this. So we've done a lot of this. We've covered a lot of ground. We hope it's been helpful to you. We're just going to start up where we left off. Before I do, let's say howdy to TJ. TJ, how are you today?
Doing all right. I got excited for a second because I thought we were on part 9, and then you said 87, and that's part 8. So, yeah. But we got through a whole section last time, so that's...
We did.
Yeah.
I expect this one is going to be longer because it's dealing with...
Jurisdictional.
No.
Judicial
There it is.
administration. Wow. Okay.
Judicial administration is going to deal with keeping all of us in line, correcting clergy who misbehave, what's our process, how are clergy who are wrongly accused protected in the midst of this process. Of course, the judiciary in the United Methodist Church went really wonky, and that's a big part of the reason why folks like me left. So how is it that we're going to do judicial administration differently in the GMC than the UMC so that hopefully we don't make the same mistakes? So any other things to say to set up before we dive in?
I don't think so. You can get right into it.
Okay, I'll be first reader, and then we'll go back and forth like usual. Good. This is going to be paragraph 801, Accountability in the Church. Founded in the gospel call to faithfulness, and as set forth in this transitional book of Doctrines and Discipline, ordination in the Global Methodist Church and membership in an annual conference is a sacred trust. As such, individual clergy, whether in active ministry, honorable or administrative location, or in senior status, are accountable to the whole church for their behavior and actions as long as they hold orders within the denomination. Similarly, numerous passages within the New Testament remind us of the sacred call given to all those in the church to watch over one another in love, stirring each to faithfulness and sanctification. Individuals accused of violating the canons of this covenant shall be subject to a review aimed at a just resolution of such complaints, in the hope that God's work of justice, reconciliation, and healing may be realized in the body of Christ. The provisions that follow shall govern this accountability process during the time between the forming of the Global Methodist Church and the effective date of any legislation passed by the convening General Conference designed to replace them. So I only pick up on a couple things in this. I like that it's established at the front end that we are given a sacred trust as clergy. This is not a profession. This is a sacred calling that, of course, there are rewards or forms of compensation involved, but this isn't the same thing as a worldly job. And I like that it says that even though there are clergy that are clearly held to a Christian standard, we're also going to hold laity to a Christian standard as well. Maybe not the same high standard, but we're still going to have mechanisms in place where people that misbehave are corrected. The thing I don't like about it is it says it's always aimed at a just resolution. And that's one of the things that killed the United Methodist Church was that they built into it a just resolution process that bishops would oversee. And then if bishops did not want to execute justice, then they would just manufacture a just resolution behind the scenes. I like summary judgment, summary punishment. If someone has committed a crime, it's substantiated, no one's fighting that. If somebody's violated the covenant, then have mandatory minimum punishments in place. And then after that, sure, seek justice or seek reconciliation, seek healing. But the problem with the UMC came in when people that were in gross violation of the covenant were not punished in any way because they were able to meet a just resolution or prolong a just resolution process indefinitely.
Right, and it was a just resolution between whoever brought the charge, correct?
Right, yeah.
Not like the whole church. Like, if you're part of a body that has all these rules, it seems weird to me that the resolution would just be between you and the person that brought the charge.
There has to be someone speaking for the whole, and ostensibly that's what the complainant is.
Ideally, yes.
But then what you saw in the United Methodist Church was
That wasn't the
people
case.
would bring it who were friendlies and then eager to seek just resolution. And what's the language that prevents that? You have to really mean it when you bring the judge. Like you really have to be upset in your heart that they violated the covenant before you bring this complaint.
Rule number 1, you have to really mean it if you want to bring a charge.
And then the other problem is, I had it in my head, but I'm going to come back to the theme of transparency again. One of the things that we ran into all the time in the United Methodist Church was that it was unclear sometimes if complaints had ever actually been filed. And then when you asked the bishop or the conference staff, they would say, that's confidential and we can't tell you.
Right, you didn't really know who brought the charges, what the charges were.
All of that was behind a veil of secrecy.
Yeah, and it would take forever to even get stuff done sometimes, and a ridiculous amount of money.
Well, yeah, there's the money aspect, but then there's also like, do I need to go through this whole very uncomfortable process of filing a complaint if somebody else has already done it? And also if it's confidential, then a bishop can say the complaint has already been filed, and he or she doesn't even have to substantiate that. So if they have somebody they just don't want to call on the carpet, then ostensibly they can lie. And yes, bishops do sometimes lie. I'm sure the GMC bishops are perfectly moral and beyond reproach. But even so, when they're willing to lie and it's a confidential process, then, I could say, yeah, TJ, sure, he did a terrible, heinous crime. He was already brought up on charges. It's been handled behind closed doors. You need to move on.
Yeah, well, not even necessarily have to lie, like maybe stretch the truth.
Yeah.
Or make it vague and not clear.
There's a lot of middle ground in there.
Yeah. I don't know, just a lot of problems when there's that kind of secrecy.
Perhaps they will anticipate these things as we go along in Section 8. So, Part 8. Would you mind doing paragraph 802?
Yeah, 802, Judicial Practices and Procedures. The Transitional Leadership Council shall approve the judicial practices and procedures, JPP, and that govern the complaint supervisory, administrative, and judicial processes. The JPP shall have the force of church law, but not be included in the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline. In the event of a conflict between the Transitional Book of Doctrine and Discipline and the JPP, the Transitional Book Doctrines and Disciplines shall govern. So the JPP is something separate.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it.
But it doesn't supersede the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Disciplines. Okay.
Yeah. When the two come in conflict, one trumps the other.
Okay.
Let's have a moment of silence while I just try and look up what the JPP is and if we have that in writing.
Yeah, we wouldn't even get to it if it's not in here.
I found it. It's at globalmethodist.org/WP-content. Oh, the address is too long. It was published in 2021, July of 2021.
Yeah, if you just go to the Global Methodist website, it's under resources. It was just 2 below Transitional Book of Doctrines and Disciplines.
Okay, so this should be considered write down somewhere that we will remember to look at in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, if maybe we should go through this, because this is a 16-page document, it looks like, that is going to determine the actual flow of a judicial complaint and what exactly happens.
Okay. So
judicial practice. In the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline, it's practices, but in the actual document, it's judicial practice and procedure rules of the Global Methodist Church. Interesting. Okay, so we need to review that at some point in the future. That's interesting. I wonder if that is just amended by the TLC behind closed doors, or if that's something that's amendable by the Global Methodist Church. That's weird. I'm not familiar with a document like this other than doctrinal documents that are generated by committee. But yeah, it'll be important Well, maybe it's perfect and it doesn't need amending, but it'll be important to at least look at it.
Yeah. We'll definitely have to go and review that before we go into the next section, I would think.
For sure. Okay. I think so. Okay. Let's go on to section 1, complaints. This is paragraph 803 dealing with complaints. The process of accountability is initiated when a formal complaint is filed. A complaint is a written and signed statement alleging misconduct as defined in paragraph 808.1-2, a judicial complaint. So we'll get to that in a minute. Or unsatisfactory performance of ministerial duties. That would be an administrative complaint, which is in paragraphs 806 through 807, which will come right before that section. If the complaint is against a bishop, the complaint shall be submitted to the chair of the Transitional Leadership Council. If the complaint is against a pastor, the complaint shall be submitted to the pastor's presiding elder and bishop, or to a president pro tempore in the presence of an assigned bishop.
Absence.
Say that again.
You said presence, absence.
Absence. Okay, thank you for correcting me. If the complaint is against a local church member, the complaint shall be submitted to the presiding elder over that local church. The person authorized to receive the complaint or their designee shall handle the complaint throughout its process. Upon receiving a complaint, the duly authorized recipient shall describe the complaint process in writing both to the person making the complaint or complainant and the person against whom the complaint is made or the respondent. As the complainant process progresses, the duly authorized recipient of the complaint shall continue to describe in writing the complainant and recipient new parts of the process in a timely fashion. I'm going to read that again. As the complainant process progresses, the duly authorized recipient of the complaint shall continue to describe in writing to the complainant and recipient new parts of the process in a timely fashion. That's interesting. All original time limitations may be extended only once for 30 days upon the consent of the complainant and the respondent. So you had Bishop Carcaño's case get indefinitely pushed out. It's saying, no, we're going to hold to the timeline, can't be violated but once and only for 30 days. The part I read twice and was so interested in, I think it's saying that whenever a complaint has been filed, the person who receives it has to regularly report to both parties as to all progress made in writing. So there has to be a paper trail about if there's been clear reporting along the way. That's a good thing. I'm trying to review some of the other ground we covered.
Yeah, I mean, just before that, it was if it's against a bishop, it goes to the TLC, Transitional Leadership Council, if the complaint is. If it's against a pastor, it goes to that pastor's presiding elder.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a local church member, then it goes to the presiding elder over that area.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I guess makes sense. I mean, the first two are who's directly above them, and the third, you think it would be the pastor, but there could be some conflicts, I guess, with that. That could be problematic, probably. Like if the pastor's filing a complaint directly against a certain member, then you could have like, oh well, that family then gets mad at the pastor. So I don't know. It just makes sense that it would go to the district superintendent.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with that.
Yeah, you don't want the pastor to be cut out of it completely, but maybe that's what needs to happen. I don't know, to maintain peace.
It just sounds like it could get real messy if the pastor, like I'm sure the pastor's involved in some way, but
I would like to think that Ray would at least let me know if there was a complaint process being handled in the church.
Yeah, I'm sure. It'd be weird if he just like showed up and was like, hey, I got something to take care of.
Or if I find out 3 months in that he's been handling this whole process between two people in the church, that would be nuts. One of the other things that I'm looking for as we go through this is in the United Methodist Church. To my mind, the bishop is responsible for prosecuting all offenses. If he's here to govern the church and ensure good order and doctrine, then anyone who violates that, it's so strange to me that some bishops wait on a complaint being filed. It seems to me that a bishop should be able to initiate a judicial process against somebody even without a complaint. What do you think about that?
Say that again. Do you think that they should be able to make their own complaint?
I guess so. I guess if something needs to be in writing, yes. But yeah, there are a lot of bishops that don't make their own complaints. That's considered a no-no, even though I don't think that's prohibited in the Book of Discipline of the UMC. So
Yeah, so if there's a pastor that's out of line
yeah.
for whatever reason, could the bishop look at that pastor and say, okay, we've got a problem. I'm going to file a complaint against you? Because he
Well,
would go,
even not even worry about the complaint. Just say you're in violation of this. I'm going to handle this right now.
oh,
You know, if I don't know if a pastor was known to be stealing money, I think it's so strange to hold up on this whole process and do it all.
well,
Bishop, call him and say, "Did you steal money? You're out."
so from personal experience, how does that make you feel about Bishop Nunn going after you kind of like that? Not for stealing money, obviously, but
Right.
for what he saw as bad mouthing the
Yeah, it was his
staff.
prerogative too. It was his prerogative too.
Sure.
And I said that whenever I was in his office, I serve at your pleasure. And it wasn't procedure that saved me there. He could have easily initiated a complaint procedure, had somebody file charges against me. That's not what saved me. He either decided that it wasn't worth the price, or secretly he liked me, or he just had other fish to fry. I think those are the only three options. But yeah, if I had done something that he deemed was really inappropriate and working against the unity of the church, I
The
just think
question
it's
is, then do you serve at the pleasure of the bishop or the pleasure of the annual conference?
well. So that's the stuff that's in writing. In an Episcopal system, the bishop is the executive agent of the annual conference. So the conference, well, and it's not even the conference. The denomination sets the rules for clergy conduct, and then it's the bishop's prerogative to then decide who's helping the conference and who's hurting the conference.
Right.
And so, like, we're very litigious. We have a list of charges you have to be guilty of, and if you're not guilty of any of those, the bishop can't do anything. I'm not even in favor of that. If the bishop just thinks somebody's dragging their feet, somebody is not helping the conference, we'd be better without them, I think it should be the bishop's prerogative. Go, you're out. And if it's me, kick me out. I just think we all have to keep in mind, if we're going to rely on procedures like this, just go ahead and count on people gumming up the works, wasting a lot of time and money. And then the other thing I'm always clear about is people in power utilize systems to do what they want. They're going to get what they want regardless. So are we going to make it, are we just going to gum it up and stretch it out, or are we just going to let it take place immediately so that we can move on?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I'm not sure how I feel. I think definitely if there was a list of certain things that, okay, it's obvious this person is breaking these specific things, then yeah, out. I don't know. Either way, it could be good, it could be bad. I don't know. I'd have to think about that before I've got an opinion on that one.
Use that noggin. We'll come back.
Anyways,
Why don't you read 804 to us?
804, just resolution. Complaints may be resolved during the supervisory response stage by a just resolution. During the supervisory response stage, so they can get rid of them right out the gate if they come to a just resolution. So
Yeah.
Okay. A just resolution is one that focuses on repairing any harm to people and communities, achieving real accountability, making things right insofar as possible, and bringing healing to all parties. With the agreement of all parties to the complaint, the assistance of a trained, impartial third-party facilitator or facilitators, and mediator or mediators.
Facilitator.
What did I say? Facilitate? What did I say?
I said facilitator.
Facilitators and mediators may be utilized to seek a just resolution satisfactory to all parties. Special attention should be given to ensuring that cultural, racial, ethnic, and gender contexts are valued throughout the process in terms of their understandings of fairness, justice, and restoration. A resolution to the complaint at the supervisory response level shall involve a written statement of the allegations, a list of all parties to the complaint, determination of facts, elucidation of context, and plan of action or agreed penalty to address the allegations, including follow-up accountability. Any just resolution that involves an allegation of disobedience to the provision of the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline shall include a commitment by the respondent to abide by all applicable disciplinary requirements, including those alleged to have been violated. Such a resolution shall not be imposed, but must be voluntarily agreed to and signed by all parties to the complaint, including, as a minimum, the complainant, the respondent, and the person authorized to receive the complaint, paragraph 8 of 3. Such a resolution shall be placed in the respondent's personal file.
Personnel
File. A just resolution agreed to all parties shall be a final disposition of the related complaint. That's a
Yep.
lot.
I don't
Okay.
like that.
The personnel file, or
I don't like the just resolution hijacking justice. So if someone brings it and they just go, "Oh, okay, it's cool now." Well, no, if they committed an offense against the covenant, then I guess I'm thinking that once someone brings a complaint, I don't really want the one bringing the complaint to be in charge of. Yeah, I guess that's what it is. I want the bishop to be in charge of has there been proper punishment, and
rather than the person complaining.
or does it say that all three have to agree? What are the people that have to agree? Okay, the minimum.
Yeah, it was whoever.
And the person
Complainant,
authorized to
respondent.
receive the complaint.
Yeah.
Okay,
if
so
it's a
no, I'm
pastor,
happy
then.
then.
The bishop.
Okay. Hypothetically now, then someone complains against me and he and I come to an agreement about what's right, but now the bishop's involved and the bishop can go, "No, I'm not happy."
Wait, if it was a pastor, was it the district superintendent that got it, or was it the bishop?
It doesn't matter in this scenario. And I don't know. I don't remember. But either way, the main thing is, well, I guess I want the bishop to always be involved. It's in the bishop's job description to maintain good discipline and order in the annual conference. It's strange to me. Okay, so two other things I want to say. One is,
Well, hold on before you do that.
yeah, okay.
If it's a pastor specifically, then it goes to the district superintendent. So
You're
it has
telling
to
me?
be- yes. So
Okay, so the bishop wouldn't even be involved.
I don't know I don't know the level of their involvement. It doesn't specify, but it would be the person getting the complaint would be the district superintendent.
Yeah.
So that would be, it would have to be the complainant.
Yeah.
The person making the complaining, the person being complained against, who's the charge being brought up against, and then in the case if it was a pastor, the district superintendent. So all three of those would have to agree to a just resolution.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I'm okay
Your
with
thought.
that, but I want the bishop, anytime there's a complaint process initiated, I want the bishop overseeing all of that. Doesn't that make sense? If he's like the key agent responsible for ensuring good discipline in the annual conference?
Maybe if so I guess in my head the being bishop doesn't make them any more holier or
No, it ain't holy.
necessarily wiser.
They are just the executive agent of the they are the one
They are
tasked. The buck stops with them.
the very top, yes.
Yeah.
But I guess it doesn't really bother me that a district superintendent would be, because the bishops are.
No, I'm fine with the district superintendent being involved. I just want to make sure the bishop has oversight of all this. But also, so if you have a disagreement with somebody and it's easily resolvable, don't escalate to this. Don't file a complaint if you just need to have a personal conversation. The Bible, the process it talks about is just talk to the person one-on-one.
Sure, yeah.
You know? And so make sure you do that first. I kind of wish they said that in this. But secondly, if you are a person who's in the pulpit and shouldn't be, would you please get out? Would you please just leave right now?
How dare you question their calling?
We just had a pastor. The United Methodist Church just had a pastor in the Northeast. I forget which conference it was. Did you hear about this? Was selling meth out of the rectory?
I remember you saying something about
Yeah.
it vaguely, but I didn't look into it, and I don't know the whole story. Tell me.
I mean, he was. I mean, some guy in his 60s, and he was selling meth in order to watch gay dudes do what gay dudes do. And yeah, the whole thing is
Wow.
just disgustingly gross and embarrassing.
How did this not get like front page news like all over the place? I feel like that's wild.
Isn't it wild? Yes. I mean, it got
Ugh.
front page attention in some places, like locally. But yeah, if you're like that, just get out. There are little old ladies giving sacrificially in the pews. They don't need to pay for your trial to remove you. Just leave, you know? And if you're a thief, just get out. If you're having hard times and you actually think it's okay to take from people's offerings, just get out. Um, yeah, I wanted to say that at the top of the episode, and then I just didn't. But when we're talking about the just resolution process, once you have escalated to the degree of putting something in writing, I just don't think, I think it's once you file the report, you know, in a court of law, generally, once you bring it to the state is in charge now. The state decides what's going to happen.
Right.
And I think it should be similar in the church. Once you've escalated to the point of a complaint, that's when I think it's in the hands of the administrators who are going to ensure that justice is fulfilled.
Yeah, I guess my thing would be, how transparent is it? If it's not transparent, then I definitely have a problem with it, because I don't know what the just resolution is. I don't know if that's actually just or not. I don't care if person A says it's just. If all three of them say it's just, I really don't care. If I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
because I don't know if it is or not, I can't make that decision.
So, like in Oklahoma, we had a female clergy who did a gay wedding very publicly. It was on their church newsletter and everything. Undeniable. Charges were, I think, filed. You can never get a clear feedback on that. Anything about the complaint process was not made known. She's still in the pulpit today. If you tell me that she and a complainant and the bishop were all satisfied by a just resolution behind closed doors, I'm not satisfied. She violated the covenant. She should be out of there.
Yeah.
So it's still not a system that promotes justice.
Yeah, because I'm sure like the UMC is going to be not. I'm sure they didn't go, "Hey, we don't recognize this marriage. This is not. This may have been performed by somebody in the UMC, but it's not recognized by us at all." I don't think that's not something they would do.
No.
So
no. Once it's been filed in the
like
county
that should be a
courthouse.
bare. Well, sure, but they can't take that back at all.
No takesy backsies. No.
Yeah, but they can say, "Okay, that's the state.
Mm-hmm.
The state's going to do what the state does.
Yeah.
We're not the state. We're the church.
Yeah.
We say this is not right. This was what this pastor did. That's not. We're not getting behind that kind
Right.
of thing.
That would be great.
You're
if they
not
did
right
that.
before God.
They don't even do that. But like, we don't even keep marriage records. We don't say who's married. You know, we just say, "Are you married in the eyes of the state?" Okay, you're cool.
Okay,
So,
that's weird.
But if we were the Roman Catholic Church, well, you think that's weird? Well, I mean, churches you've been at don't keep a written record of who's married in the eyes of God and not.
I think if they're doing the wedding, they think that should be. That's just weird to me that they wouldn't. Like, oh, okay, the state says that. Well, the state says a lot of things. The state's not the church.
That's right. Yeah.
So
There's just no database of like, here are the marriages the Global Methodist Church recognizes as legit.
then what are you doing? I don't understand. You're just pawns for the state then. What?
Ooh, look at you.
That's just weird to me.
I'm not aware of any denomination that keeps a database of all the legit marriages.
That they've done, that they've performed.
Yeah.
That's just odd to me. I guess we've never had this conversation. So
When you get married, if you use me, I'll build a database for you, buddy.
do it.
I'll put you on the database.
Why does the Global Methodist Church not have okay, here's the weddings that we did? I mean, okay, like aside from that seems like a basic responsibility if they're going to perform the wedding in the first place, like from like a historical standpoint, like a genealogy thing.
Mhm.
Like if I'm wanting something to see who was married, like first, I guess I could go to the state, but I would like to go to the church that it happened if I know the church that it happened, and like, oh, okay, here's their marriage certificate that they filled out and they did whatever with the church because the church performed it. I don't know. That just seems.
Yeah, once upon a time in our membership records, we would note who got married in the church.
Well, I mean, we have some sort of a record of like, okay, they've got married here.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I guess that's somewhat legitimate to me. Like, okay, they're keeping record of, okay, here's the weddings we performed.
Okay, yeah.
But just to Like, oh, the state says it's cool.
Yeah.
We're
The state
good to
gave me a
go.
number. I put it on my calendar. I showed up and I officiated. The end.
Yeah.
That is not satisfying to TJ Owens.
Yeah, no, that's just weird. I mean, if you're gonna do
Man,
it,
of all the things I thought you might get worked up today, that was not one of them.
Yeah, I don't know. That's weird to me. It's weird to me. Well, because if the state's just gonna do it, if you're like, if the state says it's okay and you're doing gay marriages, then
Yeah.
how is the UMC or the GMC gonna say, well? I mean, if you have no record and you're just kind of like, yeah, we were there,
Yeah.
kind of thing, then who cares?
Who cares?
I don't know if who cares is the right thing to say, but
It's just, yeah, we want to avoid that damage being done on the front end, because if that ceremony is taking place, it doesn't matter if you have a take backs, we erased them off of that page, that doesn't matter.
Like, say, oh, okay, we don't support this. Like,
Yeah.
this, you could say, I don't know, you could have pushback other than like,
We should start putting commercials on TV. On February 10th, 2024, 2 gay dudes were married over here. We disown. Has nothing to do with us.
well, they could, like, if they're going to release a statement or something, which they release statements on all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
They could say, okay.
So like in the
UMC
newspaper here, there'll be like a list of people who got arrested and what their charges were and all that. We can have a regular publication from the GMC of just the people that are kicked out now, everybody who like got gay married, and we don't whatever. We'll have a whole list of violators each like week. It'll be fun.
who are members of the church.
Yeah, they were
I
in
know
the
you're being
GMC.
sarcastic, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no, it'd be fun. Yeah, it'd be okay. Let's
These
move on.
persons violated their covenant with the church. They're
Yeah,
out.
I like it. Yeah, some kind of town crier situation.
I don't know. Maybe like a church newsletter. I don't know. Anyways, we're getting off in the
Paragraph 805, Principles of Fair Process. As a part of the Holy Covenant that exists within the membership and organization of the Global Methodist Church, the following procedures protect the rights of individuals and the church in administrative and judicial processes. The principles set forth in this paragraph shall be followed whenever there is an administrative or judicial complaint. Special attention shall be given to the timely disposition of all matters and to ensuring racial, ethnic, and gender diversity in the committees dealing with complaints. So 1, there's a right to be heard. The person authorized to receive the complaint or their designee, the complainant, and the respondent shall have a right to be heard before any final action is taken at any stage in the process. 2, right to notice. The respondent and complainant have the right to notice of any hearing with sufficient detail to allow the respondent to prepare a response. Notice shall be given not less than 20 days prior to the hearing. 3, a right to presence and accompaniment. The respondent and the complainant shall have a right to be present at all hearings and the right to be accompanied to any hearing by a support person with the right to voice. The support person shall be a member of the Global Methodist Church. Under no circumstances shall the church award compensation for or reimbursement of any expenses or fees associated with the respondent's or complainant's use of an attorney. Yikes. 4, access to records. The respondent shall have access at least 10 days prior to any hearing to all records to be relied upon in the determination of the outcome of the process, including the written texts of the complaints themselves.
Okay, there's 10 parts. There's a whole lot to this.
Mm-hmm.
So 1's the right to be heard. So whoever's receiving the complaint.
All 3 main parties have a right to speak to the judge or
Gotcha.
whoever is convening such gatherings. So there's no one that's going to be silenced among those 3 parties.
Okay, that makes sense. Right to notice, so they get a notice before anything's taking place.
20 days. 20 days prior.
Okay. And then a right to be there is 3. So
Yeah,
you've got a
you
right to actually
in an American court of law, you have the right to face your accuser. Be a similar thing,
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And then you've got access to all the records at least 10 days prior to any
and
hearing.
that would be similar to like the process of discovery.
Right. Okay.
So a lot of this mirrors American judicial law.
Okay, that makes sense.
Point 5, ex parte communication. Under no circumstances shall one party, in the absence of the other party, discuss substantive issues with members of the body hearing the pending matter or with each other, with the exception of paragraph 805.6. Questions of procedure may be raised with the presiding officer of the hearing body, with the answers shared with all parties. So, under no one party in the absence of the other party discuss substantive. Okay, in the key phrase there being in the absence of the other party.
Yeah, which is paragraph 805.6 is failure to respond. So if they don't respond,
Oh, yeah, then
Then
you
they
have to move
forfeit
forward.
their-
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Point 6 is failure to respond. In the event that a respondent fails to appear for supervisory interviews, refuses mail, refuses to communicate personally with the person handling the complaint of their designee, or otherwise fails to respond to supervisory requests or requests from official committees, such actions or inactions shall not be used as an excuse to avoid or delay any church processes, and such processes may continue without the participation of such individual.
okay, that makes sense. So
Yeah, sure.
you've got a gracious period of time before these all take place. They give you a certain time, and if you don't respond, you can't just not respond and then hold the whole trial up thing. So
Okay. Point 7, healing. As part of the accountability process, the bishop and cabinet, in consultation with the presiding officer of the hearing, trial, or appellate body hearing the pending matter, shall provide resources for healing if there has been significant disruption to the congregation, the annual conference, or the context of ministry by the matter. Resources for healing shall include communication about the complaint and the process and the release of as much information as possible without compromising the process. I was wanting to mock that one and say, like, what are they going to give them, like a cry room or something?
I was kind of expecting like, oh, you've got to have a psychologist or some kind
Yeah.
of. But no, that
It's
was
just saying no. Share information with
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
Let them
that's-
let them be a part of the process.
that
Yeah.
was the thing I was going to hit on, like
Yeah.
as much information as possible. Which
I
is
like
nice.
that.
Yeah.
Information is healing. Justice is healing. Information is healing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great understanding of healing. 8, double jeopardy. No person shall be subject to double jeopardy. This means barring new compelling information or fact, no complaint shall be accepted for the same alleged offenses based on the same set of facts. When a similar complaint has already been adjudicated via just resolution or final action by an administrative or judicial body. For this paragraph, quote, new compelling information or facts, end quote, means information or facts not introduced in the original judicial or administrative process that more likely than not would affect the findings of the hearing body. This does not preclude filing a new complaint for new instances of the same offense. So if I got accused of stealing and there was a whole process and I was declared not guilty, some other person who's just not a fan of me can't come after me for that same offense. But if I steal again, then
There's
they
a
can come
different
after me,
instance,
file
yeah.
a new complaint. Yeah.
Yeah. Which makes sense. The only problem with that was, and I'm not saying there should be no double jeopardy, because I agree with that for the most part. It was the problem with like the complainants filing a complaint, but being on the side of the person that the complaint is against, and then just coming to a just resolution, and
Right.
then nobody can come back and say, okay, but that's not, you didn't actually fix this. You
Right.
just kind of skirted around it.
You're right. That totally does not answer that concern.
So
Point 9, immunity from prosecution. To preserve the integrity of the church's process and ensure full participation at all times, the chair of the TLC, the bishop, president pro tempore, cabinet, board of ministry, witnesses, support persons, council, administrative review committee, clergy voting in executive session, and all others who participate in the church's process shall have immunity from prosecution of complaints brought against them related to their role in a particular process, unless they have committed a chargeable offense in conscious and knowing bad faith. The complainant/plaintiff in any proceeding against any such person related to their role in a particular judicial process shall have the burden of proving by clear and convincing evidence that such person's actions constituted a chargeable offense committed knowingly in bad faith. The immunity set forth in this provision shall extend to civil court proceedings to the fullest extent possible by the civil laws.
So basically, the judge who's in charge of the proceeding or all of these other people, so the complainant can't be like, I don't like this judgment, I'm bringing charges against you and you and you and you and you just because I don't like how it turned out.
You have miscarried my justice.
Yeah. They've got to prove, okay, they actually committed some kind of
I guess I just don't
offense.
see why this is necessary, because if somebody hasn't committed a chargeable offense, throw out the complaint they bring. But we haven't even seen provision for throwing out a complaint, have we?
Not yet. I'm sure it's in here, though.
Okay, yeah. Okay, point 10, counsel for the church. No person who is a member of the TLC, cabinet, conference staff, board of ministry, or committee on investigation on or after the date of the alleged offense shall be appointed counsel for the church or serve as counsel for the respondent or any of the persons bringing complaints in a case. By agreeing to serve, the counsel for the church signifies his or her willingness to uphold the requirements of church law and the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline. Counsel for the church shall represent the interests of the church in pressing the claims of the person making the complaint. So, there's a bunch of people for the counsel of the church that you can't pick. That's basically all I took from that.
Okay. I zoned out on that one, so I'm glad you got that.
Yeah, I kind of did too. My judicial mind is not as sharp as I would have it. So, all right, let's go on. We got paragraph 8. Well, wait, was there anything about 805 that you wanted to cover?
No, there was the thing at the beginning that had to do with racial, ethnic, and gender diversity.
Yeah, you got to make
that was in the paragraph before. We didn't, and we've hit on that enough.
Yeah, they got to pepper that in. It's going to be peppered in throughout the rest.
It's problematic for reasons we've already pointed out. Go back and watch other episodes.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. 806.
So 807. 807, right?
806. Really? Oh, yeah. No,
806. I skipped that. Okay, 806. Administrative complaints concerning clergy. An administrative complaint involving allegations of the unsatisfactory performance of ministerial duties through incompetence, ineffectiveness, or unwillingness or inability to perform such duties. Allegations of professional or personal misconduct shall not be handled through an administrative complaint, but through the provisions of paragraph 808.1 and 2, which we haven't got to. Administrative complaints may be filed by laypersons who are within the scope of the respondent's ministry, other clergy familiar with the respondent's ministry, the presiding elder, or the bishop. And the complaint shall contain specific examples of unsatisfactory performance, including at least approximate dates and times, if appropriate. 1. Processing of administrative complaints shall be governed by JPP 2 and 3, which we haven't gone over yet, and shall include an administrative supervisory response, which shall be followed, if warranted, by an investigative response, an administrative review, and an appeal. There shall be administrative review and administrative review committee in every annual conference composed of 3 ordained clergy and 2 alternatives who are not members of the cabinet, the board of ministry, or immediate family members of the above. Committee members must be in good standing and must be of good character. The committee shall be nominated by the bishop and elected by the clergy session of the annual conference. Its only purpose shall be to ensure that the disciplinary procedures for resolving a substantiated administrative complaint are properly followed as per the requirements of JPP 2 and 3 in fair process, which is paragraph 805. 3. Expense. All expenses for the administrative process for clergy shall be borne by the annual conference, except for travel and other expenses of the respondent and their support person.
Who covers that? Them?
I assume it's going to be them.
Okay.
So they have to pay for all their. So this is a complaint if somebody's complaining against clergy.
Yeah.
Okay, I read that and I kind of zoned out the whole time.
It's
there's gonna be
governed by that document, judicial process and procedure or whatever.
Right.
It's governed by that. When you get things in action, here are the people that you have to get involved. Here's the people that can't be involved. And then here's how you handle money, basically.
Okay, so did they set up a committee? That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So there's a
Through
committee.
the board of, there's a committee that everybody has to be in good standing and of good character. The committee is going to be nominated by the bishop.
Okay, so the district superintendent gets the complaint, and then they create a committee to oversee that. So it's not just the district superintendent that oversees it.
I'm not sure that the committee is automatically followed. I think that's stipulated in this JPP document about at what stage the committee is put together, because there is a just resolution process before things escalate.
Okay. I'm just trying to think if we should go over that before we even go through the rest of this, because I feel like it's going to be referenced a lot. It's going to be referenced a lot.
I probably don't think there's any way that we can cover it and have every question answered already. I think it's better to just go through one, then come through the other, then see if there's any questions left over. But I think, you have to connect these dots this way.
Okay.
Let's do administrative complaints concerning bishops. This is paragraph 807. An administrative complaint involves allegations of the unsatisfactory performance of ministerial duties through incompetence, ineffectiveness, or unwillingness or inability to perform such duties. Allegations of professional or personal misconduct shall not be handled through an administrative complaint, but through the provisions of paragraph 808, 1-2. Administrative complaints may be filed by laypersons, clergy, and presiding elders in the annual conference in which the bishop is serving, the Conference Committee on Episcopacy, or another bishop. The complaint shall contain specific examples of unsatisfactory performance, including at least approximate dates and times if appropriate. The supervisory process shall be administered by the chair of the Transitional Leadership Council or their designee. All expenses for the administrative process for complaints involving bishops shall be borne by the general church. The process for an administrative complaint against a bishop shall be governed by JPP 3.
So the bishop gets their travel covered, whereas
Yes.
clergy do not.
Okay. Inequity. Let's burn the house down.
Well, it says travel or other expenses.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also find it strange that the supervisory process has to be administered by the chair of the TLC, because the bishop would have worked closely with the chair of the TLC. So it's it's likely that they like each other. So
Possibly, yeah.
It seems like maybe somebody else should be in charge of that.
Yeah, I guess the question is who else is higher? Well, nobody's really higher,
No,
but they would have to
there's
set up
nobody
some
higher.
kind of council.
Yeah, you would just have to have somebody beyond moral reproach who's designated, probably among the clergy, and who's not in their annual conference, so they couldn't get punished if the bishop came out of it.
Yeah.
All right, go on to paragraph 808.
Okay, 808, judicial complaints. A judicial complaint involves allegations of misconduct as enumerated in the chargeable offenses below. Such complaints may be filed by any laypersons or clergy persons, a presiding elder, or a bishop. The complaints shall contain specific allegations of misconduct, including at least approximate dates and times if appropriate. Number 1, chargeable offenses. A bishop or clergy member of an annual conference, including senior clergy and clergy on honorable or administrative location, may be tried when charged, subject to the statute of limitations listed below, with one or more of the following offenses. A, conviction or admission of guilt in criminal activities, including but not limited to child or elder abuse, theft, or assault. B, fiscal malfeasance or gross financial mismanagement. C, racial, gender or sexual discrimination or harassment. D, promoting or engaging in doctrines or practices or conducting ceremonies or services that are not in accord with those established by the Global Methodist Church. E, disobedience to the order and discipline of the Global Methodist Church. F, relationships and or behavior that undermines the ministry of another person, or another pastor, rather. G, engaging in sexual activities outside the bonds of a loving and monogamous marriage between one man and one woman, including but not limited to sexual abuse or misconduct, the use of the use or possession of pornography, or infidelity. So those are all of the chargeable offenses.
Good for them, including pornography. So
Yeah.
if you are a pastor who is using pornography, you need to stop immediately. This is, I would assume, quite common, actually, within clergy. It's not okay. And it doesn't matter if you agree with this or not. This is the covenant right now. And we don't need a bunch of sexually minded people in the pulpit. So is there anything else in this that's worth hammering in? Or is all of it pretty common sense?
I don't think so. Yeah, no, those are pretty common.
F is pretty broad. So in the United Methodist Church, the expectation was when you moved to a new church, you cut off everybody you knew from the old church. You're not friends. You're not Facebook friends. There's no correspondences. There's no continued friendships. And,
Really?
Yeah. And then if you maintained those, hypothetically, you could be brought upon charges for interfering with the ministry of another pastor. You know, they're very territorial because, you know, if you moved on and there's a new pastor, but somebody in the church remembered you and they wanted you to do a funeral for someone that you ministered to for many years, or they want you to do a wedding to some kids that you helped raise, like, that's a no-no. So
That seems excessive.
right.
Yeah, it seems ridiculous.
Well, especially if we're connectional, then and if we're all preaching the same doctrine,
Yeah.
you know, then we're all kind of interchangeable, and that's the idea. What happened in the United Methodist Church was we started preaching very different doctrines, and it became adversarial. And but yeah, there's not really a good reason for that. But I mean that should still be there because pastors do interfere in each other's ministries sometimes. When I lived in Idaho, there was a pastor just what direction was that? I want to say it was north. He was the next town over, and he had friends in my church, and he got them to like spy on me and report to him, and they started like sowing seeds of discontent. I finally found out he was behind it. I should have pulled him up on charges. I did report him to the DS, and he was just like, man, that really stinks. And that was it. There was no process. But yeah, there should be some kind of intervention, whether or not it's a formal thing. Pastors do mess with each other sometimes. It's really crappy.
Yeah, I guess that one out of necessity has to be very broad and open-ended.
Well, and E is really broad too, and I like that broadness. Any disobedience to the order and discipline of the GMC charges, and we've already covered so much material there. So it's kind of laughable that there's only these seven A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 7 things that are listed here, but when they're this broad, they actually include a couple hundred things, really.
Yeah, for sure. All right, 2. A professing member of a local church may be charged, subject to the statute of limitations listed below, with the following offenses. So the first one was clergy. This one is
Laity.
And they just go on to H.
Yeah.
So does that, I assume that includes, I guess it wouldn't be because it's the following offenses.
Yeah, they should start over at A. I don't know why they didn't.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay, H. Conviction, okay, these are the same thing. Conviction or administration of guilt in criminal activities, including but not limited to child or elder abuse, theft, or assault. Fiscal malfeasance or gross financial mismanagement. J, racial, gender, or sexual discrimination or harassment. K, promoting or engaging in doctrines or practices that are not in accord with those established by the Global Methodist Church. L, disobedience to the order and discipline of the Global Methodist Church. And M, relationships and or behaviors that undermine the ministry of a pastor.
Okay, so that's different.
That's, yeah. So instead of well, the other one's other pastors, but this
Yeah.
is your pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just cuts off there where the other one had.
The sex stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and laity, that's not to mean that it's okay that you look at porn. You really shouldn't. But we're just not as interested, as concerned about sexual purity among the laity as among the clergy.
Yeah, the clergy are held to a higher standard because they're
Clergy.
clergy. So, yeah.
But sexual immorality is bad for all people. Whether or not the church punishes you, God will. And that's what you should really be worried about. All right, go on.
All right, 3, statute of limitations. So, no judicial complaint or charge shall be considered for any alleged occurrence that shall not have been committed within 6 years immediately preceding the filing of the original complaint. Okay, so the statute of limitations is 6 years from when it happened?
That's what it sounds like.
Okay, interesting. So as soon as you hit 6 years from the actual complaint, it's out.
Yeah.
I guess. Okay. And then it says notwithstanding. Okay, so it goes on. Notwithstanding the foregoing in the case of allegations of sexual or child abuse. Okay, so it's included. Yeah. Or crimes involving allegations of sexual or child abuse. Those shall be no statute of limitations.
There shall be no statute.
There shall be no statute of limitations.
So the sex stuff is so bad, there is no statute of limitations. If you ever did it,
right,
we're going to get you.
Or just child abuse in general.
Sure.
Yeah.
I doubt there's any definition of child abuse. There are a lot of people who see corporal punishment as child abuse.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's... I'd be interested to see if anybody brought somebody up on charges for disciplining their child physically, but not going to an extreme. I guess that's pretty subjective.
Yeah. Well, in the United Methodist Church, they hardly ever brought laity up in particular on anything at all.
Yeah.
I remember there was a politician who made a statement about how capital punishment is okay because the book of Romans gives the state permission to wield the sword. And man, there were cries from all over to pull that guy up on charges. We don't want him to be a United Methodist anymore. But generally speaking, no, this stuff is just handled within the local church. It's not that it's not a big deal. It's just escalating to this degree is quite dramatic.
Yeah.
Unnecessarily so.
That last sentence, time spent on leave of absence shall not be considered as part of the 6 years. So you can't just commit the crime, go on leave of absence, and then be on leave of absence for 5 years.
That would be so crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad they closed that little opening there. Yeah.
That makes sense. All right. 4 is time of offense. A person shall not be charged with an offense that is not a chargeable offense at the time it is alleged to have been committed. So if somebody comes up with a rule after you've already committed, so say they come up with a rule that says you're not allowed to do this. If you've done that before they came up with that rule, you can't be brought up on charges.
No bad dad jokes from the pulpit. I've said 9,000.
Yeah. No cringy dad jokes.
Yeah, you can't get me on that, suckers.
But if you do it after they make that, then you're in trouble. Any charge filed shall be in the language of the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline in effect at the time of the offense, at the time the offense is alleged to have occurred, except in the case of sexual or child abuse or crimes involving sexual or child abuse. Then it shall be in the language of the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Disciplines in effect at the time the charge was filed. Any charge must relate to an action listed as a chargeable offense in the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Disciplines. So I guess hypothetically, if they come up with some kind of extra rule that involves sexual or child abuse, maybe something that's more specific, that you can still be brought up on charges even if they've happened before that's put in the Book of Doctrine and Disciplines.
And you'd hate to think that this is necessary, but I also can't help but notice it doesn't define what abuse is, physical, but it doesn't define what sexual abuse is. So And the reason that matters is when you take sexual harassment courses, a lot of times the way another person feels can determine whether or not you have violated them, whether or not you've actually even touched them or said anything to them.
Yeah. Yeah. If we get into a weird, I don't know. I
Maybe
would
it'll
be,
define this stuff later on. I mean, who's to say how much this is even going to come up? But I mean, pastors misbehave, people in the church misbehave. Sarah Beth started wearing her hair covering not because of biblical obedience, but because this guy in the church kept saying things that just made her uncomfortable.
it's a little creepy.
Yeah, it wasn't like overtly so, not like, why'd you say my wife looked nice today? Like I
Yeah.
wasn't, but it was just, but once she put the hair covering on, he stopped commenting on her appearance. It worked. But still, is it worth like embarrassing the man, filing charges? There's some people who'd say, yeah, he's got to learn to govern himself.
I guess if it's, well, to these level of charges, like that's something I feel like if it's a lay person, you take care of that in the church. And if for whatever reason it's still an issue and you haven't kicked them out, like, I don't know. I guess it would be weird for for that example to get to this level where the district superintendent's involved and the bishop possibly. I don't know. I'm sure there are
We live
situations
in a
that could
weird
happen.
world, man,
Yeah.
with some weird people.
It's in there. It's in there for a reason. Okay. 5, if the respondent is a bishop. The chair of the Transitional Leadership Council shall make the Conference Episcopacy Committee where the bishop resides, if any, and all active bishops aware of the complaint and keep them appraised of its progress.
No, it was apprised.
Appraised?
No, apprised. That's
I feel like I would say that as appraised. You would say that as apprised.
appraised is spelled RAISED. This is apprised. This is a different word.
Excuse my ignorance.
It's okay. We'll get out a dictionary.
We're looking this up.
There are so
afterwards.
many words in the English dictionary that are important to, well, I mean, you can probably get through life without knowing the difference between apprised and appraised.
Well, no, it's going to drive me insane. Absolutely. That's what I'm doing right after this. Anyways.
Well, no, I think right after we turn off the camera today, we're going to look at the rest of this section. We're going to do a cursory look at the JPP document and figure out which one. I think we're going to finish this and then go to the JPP document. We might need to call on some kind of legal expert for when we go through the JPP doctrine. I sense that's going to get in the weeds a lot more.
Yeah, we still got a couple of sections before we even get to. Oh yeah, there's a lot in this one.
Yeah, so we'll, I would apologize for not covering much ground, but I think a lot of these, I mean, so much of my conversation today was just focusing on problems in the United Methodist Church and why these. We got to close these loopholes. We got to take care of this. So I don't think we wasted much time. I hope it's been
this was productive.
Yeah. So we'll hop back in where we left off next week. It's worth really engaging this stuff. Don't assume all this stuff is going to get worked out at the convening conference. Pray for the Global Methodist Church. This is the sort of thing that can sink a denomination. If we get a bunch of litigious people pulling each other up on charges, using all this time and energy and money, it can just drag us down. So whatever system we need have in place, not only should it protect people, but it should go quickly, be cheap, and not recreate the mess of the UMC. So we need to call this episode to a close. TJ, anything else you want to say before we turn things off?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate everybody going along through the ride with us. I noticed that more and more people are coming on board and going back and looking at old episodes and enjoying this stuff. So we know we're not experts on this. I hope you're not getting the impression that we are. We're just lay people making our way. Well, he's a lay person, and I might as well be making our way through this stuff. So follow up on whatever questions you have. If you learned something that pertains to this, you can email us and let us know at plainspokenpod@gmail.com. I do a good job staying on top of that. You can also, it's great when people comment on this stuff and just let us know what you're thinking and how you're processing the information, what concerns you have. And then as always, like and share it and promote it as you're able. So if you do want to support our efforts so that we can build more infrastructure to do stuff like this for building up the Global Methodist Church, you can go over to plainspoken.locals PlainSpoken.com, and that's where you can become a supporter. And we thank our supporters who make this possible. All right. God bless you, friends. We'll see you next week.